Okay, you guys, thank you so much for being here. So today what we're going to be covering is the disclosures and how to set them up in Glide for your sellers. Specifically, that's what we're going to discuss. The T.D.S, the S.P.Q, the D.I.A, and the S.A. So transaction disclosure summary. Oh my gosh, I totally just blanked on that. Holy cow. Transfer disclosure statement, seller property questionnaire, exempt seller disclosure. The SA is the seller advisory, and the D.I.A is disclosure information advisory. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at those forms. Then I'm going to show you how to set them up in Glide for when you have listings. Alrighty. So essentially, first and foremost, what I want you guys to know is that sellers are able to sellers should be filling out the TDS and the S.P.Q or the exempt seller disclosure themselves. You never, ever, ever, ever fill out the TDS, the S.P.Q, or the E.S.D. The seller can do it by pen and paper, or they can do it digitally. What we're going to discuss today is digitally. Again, what is most important here is that you understand that you never fill out a TDS or an S.P.Q or the E.S.D, exempt seller disclosure. Let's say you have a seller that physically cannot fill out the forms. They can't get on a computer. They cannot physically write. You still cannot fill those out for them. What you'll suggest them do is there a friend or a family member that can come help you? Is there someone on TaskRabbit? Can I get you someone on TaskRabbit or Thumbtack to come and fill out these forms with you? Because I, as a real estate agent, cannot physically touch these forms with you. So much so that I'm going to share screen with you guys here. So much so that actually on the, can you give me a quick thumbs up? Can you see my zip forms? Cool. Thanks, guys. So when I go into zip forms and I'm looking at, let's just go with the TDS. Transfer disclosure statement. I can't believe I blanked on that form name, like, geez Louise. Okay, so when you go into zip forms, you can see the only items you can fill out is this top section. Zip forms will not allow you to fill out anything here. I absolutely won't allow you, because that's outside of the scope of your duty. You are not supposed to be filling this out. So that's for the TDS. You can see the yellow parts is what you can fill out. So this information you can fill out. This stuff, that's the seller filling that information out. Let's look at the seller property questionnaire. Again, you can see the yellow is what you can fill out. All this grayed out area, you do not touch. Even again, you guys, I emphasize this so much because if your client goes to court, this is one of the forms that actually gets put up on this huge screen. You don't want your handwriting on there. Trust me, that will land you in court in your own lawsuit. So again, the only parts that you can fill out are these yellow portions. Let's look at the exempt seller disclosure. Here's what you can fill out. This section, not here. This is for sellers that do not have to fill out the TDS or the S.P.Q. Alrighty, awesome. So you can't fill those out other than the property address. So at the listing appointment, will it always be highlighted is the question. It will not. When you print these off, so what you'll do is when you go to a listing appointment, I always bring with me a sample of these so that I can leave it with the sellers and they have a paper copy to go through it. I leave them the T.D.S, the S.P.Q, the seller advisory, and the disclosure information advisory. Those 4 forms are what I leave with them. If the property is in a trust, or if it's a situation where the seller doesn't need to fill out these forms, I still give them then a copy of the exempt seller disclosure, the E.S.D. When I print these forms out, they say sample across them, and that is not a valid item for them to fill out when it says sample on it. It's just an example so that they can take a look at it. In that sample form, they're not highlighted. That's a great question. And then I explain to the seller what these 2 forms are, the T.D.S and the S.P.Q. I explain to them that I cannot fill these out for you. This is based on the information that you know about the home. And I tell them, if you have questions of whether I should disclose or not, then disclose it. We want to make the sellers aware that not disclosing something could land them in really hot water. What I tell my clients is for every 100 real estate transactions, 1 goes to court. My job is to keep us all out of court. So that's a statistic that you can tell sellers, and it'll kind of make them be like, oh, wow, I really need to pay attention and take my time with these forms, right? So, and that was a statistic that I heard 5 years ago, could be different now, but 5 years ago, it was for every 100 transactions, 1 goes to court. Let's keep our tails out of court, right? So I bring this with me, and I let them know what they're going to fill out. And I ask them, you know, I have a program that I can send you guys. It's very similar. It's an online workflow tool. It's really similar to something like TurboTax, where you log in and it's going to ask you 1 by 1 by 1 questions. It'll take you through a workflow. And I tell them the product that I use, it's called Glide. You'll be receiving an email from me if you'd like to use this online tool. And what I also like to show them is I like to show them a T.D.S and an S.P.Q that has been filled out on Glide, because they'll see, oh, it's nicely written out. If I need to have another a text overflow advisory, it'll automatically put that in. But if they're handwriting it and I show them a handwritten form, as you can see here, Mrs. Seller, I can't tell if this says sewer or sausage. So we need to make sure that we let the clients know, the buyers know, if we're talking about a sewer lateral or a sausage lateral. There's no such thing as a sausage lateral. So in order for us to be perfectly clear with the buyer, I highly suggest that we use this online workflow called Glide. And they'll see it, again, they'll see it side by side. Okay, yeah, go ahead and leave me, what the seller might tell you is go ahead and leave me these examples, but I will fill it out online. Or if it's someone that's super old school, you'll still give them the option to fill it out on paper. Is that clear? Does that make perfectly clear sense, you guys? Okay, awesome, awesome. Great. So let's go in and, oh, real quick, before I go into Glide, I want to show you guys what the other forms look like. One more time, give me a thumbs up if you can see zip forms. Cool, thank you. Alrighty, so we've discussed the T.D.S and the S.P.Q, and I've shown you the E.S.D, the exempt seller disclosure. The seller advisory is attached to the packet that's included in your listing agreement, your RLA. This is what it looks like, and it explains to the seller what are disclosures. Here's the general disclosure duties. Here's your statutory duties. And keep in mind, this is for SFRs 1 to 4 units. It explains to them what the NHD is, the TDS, the NHD, the lead disclosure, It explains to them how they'll disclose, or if they need to disclose, if there was deaths on the family. Marketing considerations, it'll explain here. It will also explain any marketing considerations. So it's very important that you guys go through and explain these documents to the seller, especially this seller advisory to them. Let's take a look at the disclosure information advisory. So this is going to prepare them for filling out these disclosures, right? So it's important that when you send them the T.D.S. and the S.P.Q, that they've also seen and signed off on the D.I.A, the Disclosure Information Advisory. This is again for sellers. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell them exactly what they're filling out, how to fill it out, instructions for filling out the forms. And what I always make sure to point out are the final recommendations. And I tell them, can you read me this last sentence here? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. Do I need to disclose? The answer is almost yes, disclose it. When they read that out loud, I reiterate to them, okay, great. As you can see here, if the question comes up to you, should I disclose? Let's go ahead and disclose it. There's no such thing as over disclosure. In fact, if you disclose too much and that buyer decides to back out, they may have decided to back out anyways. We just did ourselves the favor of not elongating this transaction. It's better to tell folks up front what's going on. So again, I always bring these forms, a sample copy with me to the listing agreement. It is extra paper, right? But it's also going to make you seem like the market expert. Look, I'm bringing forms that you already are going to be filling out. It's creating that trust in you. That's hard to get from the consumer sometimes. All right, so let's go in and take a look at Glide. So by a show of hands, have you guys used Glide before? Cool, awesome. Yeah, it's, I only started using it during the pandemic because typically I would, before I knew what I was supposed to be doing, I would go through with the sellers and I would sit at their kitchen table while they filled out the TDS and S.P.Q. And I had it one time, it took 5 hours for someone to fill it out. And the whole time I'm just sitting there like, yep, yeah, I see that crack too. Go ahead and mark what you feel is appropriate on that form. Don't do that. Just send them give them a sample, send it through Glide, or print out a copy that they will fill out on their own. Alrighty, you guys. So let's go into Glide. This is going to make your job so much easier. All right, cool. Questions about, or sorry, not questions. Do you see my screen here for Glide? Right on. Okay, great. So this is what it looks like when you log into Glide. This is going to be your dashboard. Let me go back a step. All right, I'm already logged in. So when you get into Glide, go down to transactions. We're going to create a new transaction.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there an app for that?
Yeah. That's a great question, Tim. There is an app that you can download on your phone. Yep. Great question. So it is a workflow. It will ask us questions and we fill it out. So, and you'll want to have yourself and your TC included in here. And my clients always ask me, do I have to pay for the pro feature? Because it'll ask your clients, do you want to pay? No, I personally use the free tool that they have. So we're discussing sellers. So this is going to be for a listing and we're going to prepare it for listing. You can, you or your TC can create templates. I don't have templates set up yet. I probably should do that. All right, we're going to use my home address as an example. So you'll fill out that information. You see how it's a workflow, it asks you and then you go through. All right, cool. So the transaction name, I've got that here, and then it's giving me options here. I can just hit continue, or I can go in here and add parties. So this is where you would add your transaction coordinator. And then when you fill out your AVID, or when the seller fills out their disclosures, your TC automatically gets that email. Love that because it's less work for me. You can include more information here about this property. What's really cool, you guys, is I know that a lot of agents are using Home Light, or it used to be called Disclosures.io. I know that they're using that as their disclosure sources. You can also use Glide. I'm sure you've seen some agents are using Glide instead of Home Light for disclosures. So you can pop all that info in here, and then it will create a disclosure package for you. So if you have a photo, if you've already gotten photos taken, you can edit this here. Listing info, you'll want to update when you have an MLS number, when you got the listing. As much info as you can provide up front, that's better. The more info you can provide, the better. So you can add in all kinds of information here. For the sake of our exercise, we're just going to hit continue. Right on. So this is where we're at now. You can see here, there's a suggested workflow. So we're going to do the prepare disclosure package. Now from here, you can do 3 different workflows, and I flippin' love this, you guys, because it genuinely makes your job easier and your TC's job easier. TCs have so much on their plates. Let's try and make their jobs easier, right? So we're going to go through the invite seller to fill out disclosures in just a moment. You can also have your TC order your natural hazard disclosure right here. And as you've seen in a previous video, you can fill out your AVID through Glide as well. I absolutely love the Glide AVID because I can go in and take photos and make tons of remarks, and it automatically puts in a text overflow addendum. Love that. For now, hold on, let's let this pass. All right, cool. For now, we're going to invite the seller to fill out these disclosures.
I just did the
You're good. No worries. All right, cool. So it's automatically going to have us fill out the T.D.S, the S.P.Q. You can add other forms in here. As an example, my transaction coordinator, she always includes the homeowner's guide for earthquake safety form because they're going to have to fill that out anyways. Might as well get it done now. You can include your FERPTA. If it is in a trust or any other reason that the seller is exempt, you can include that in here and delete these. Lead-based paint. If it is in a manufactured home neighborhood, you can put that in there. Tons of other options that you can include in here, right? So let's go ahead and hit continue. Your bill, you'll fill out all this information, all right? So this home was built in 1907. We're just gonna make up a random ass number. All right, and then I will attach my AVID, unless you've already completed an AVID. But either way, you're still going to attach your AVID to these disclosures. Am I, as a listing agent, aware if the property is in an HOA? It is not. What type of property is it? You'll go through and fill this out. Purchase agreement date, you can leave that blank, and we'll hit save and continue. So it's really cool because it's just going to take you step by step by step. You can add a seller. I'm just going to put in myself as the seller. And then when you go to add a seller, it's going to ask additional information. Seller entity type. Is it an individual, a trust, a corporation, an estate? For the purpose of our example today, we're just going to say it's an individual. Here's their name. If it's in a trust, you'll include the trust info here. You can even include your logo, the seller's mailing address. This is currently EXP's address, but you would include your sellers. Again, fill out as much info as you can up front, makes it easier on the back end. Make sure that this information is correct about your brokerage. Cool. And then here is, oh no, I don't want to make any edits to that. All right. And then here you can add in your TC. We'll hit continue. Great. So as you can see here, I have just the basic plan. Remote. How are my clients going to be filling this out? They're going to be filling it out remote to be invited via email. And then here's the subject line that they're going to get. You can make edits to this as well. And then here's their templated email that they have. You can apply a different template. You can use the default, or you can save this as a template. For now, we're just going to hit send. It's thinking, it's getting things ready. It is constantly going to have you try to pay for the paid feature. Again, if you feel like it's important for your business to have the additional bells and whistles, I honestly am not even sure what the additional bells and whistles are, other than like if I've got a disclosure package set up through Glide for the MLS, I can see when agents log in to my disclosure package, and I can see how many times they've looked at it. Other than that, I'm not sure what the purpose of getting the paid version is. Does anyone on the call today have the paid version? Okay, cool. All right, awesome. So disclosure advisory, this is letting the sellers know how to fill this out, what the different, this is basically the D.I.A, disclosure information advisory, in this form. And as you can see, this is now pretending like I'm the seller, right? This is what my seller is going to be getting. As the seller, they would hit accept. Glide disclosure, it's just letting us know some disclosures about Glide. And then as a seller, here's what their information is going to look like, right? So this is, we're pretending that this is the seller. They can start the package. And then it's, they can preview the original form. Remember, I told you to send them to drop off sample printed copies. They can also preview the form here. This is what you would bring with you to your listing appointment, so that they are aware of what they're going to be filling out. They can also take a look at the preview of the original form, but from here, they would go to get started. Again, it's going to show them a bajillion times disclosure advisories. And boom, this is when they get started filling out their forms. So they would go in and read these questions. If they're not sure, they can flag it for review. And then in here, they can leave a comment and say, listing agent, I'm not sure if there are subs for this form. They would red flag it. So what these little flags are doing is, once they have red flagged something, when they hit complete at the end of this, we're not going to go through and complete it because it does take a long time. But when they go through and hit, I've completed this, then the listing agent, us, we get a copy in our email, and it'll say your client has red flagged A, B, and C. So then you would go in, make notes. Hey, let's discuss further, or no, there are no other substitutions for this form. Everything looks good. Go ahead and hit submit. And again, it's great because as a listing agent, I can now go in and complete my AVID once they've submitted that info. I personally like to submit the AVID. If I'm the listing agent, I like to have that AVID done after the sellers have done their disclosure statement so that I can go in and read anything that they maybe forgot to tell me in the listing appointment. A great example is one that I have off market right now where the seller told me, hey, we have a bomb shelter in the backyard. Cool, got it, understood. Home was built in the 50s. It's normal for that area. But what the seller forgot to tell me was that it was actually filled in with sand. So great, now that I've received that T.D.S, I can put in my AVID, seller disclosed to me that there is a bomb shelter that has been filled in with sand. Operational status, unknown. Like, I have not seen this bomb shelter. This is just something that the seller told me, right? So I like to have it done after the seller has completed it, but before I go on the market. It is a part of the seller's disclosures. The AVID is a part of the seller disclosures, right? So if I submit an AVID to a buyer's agent after we've gone into contract and they see something that they don't like, buyers see something that they don't like, they now have 5 days to back out of contract because the seller didn't disclose something to them. And that was my bad because we're representing the seller. That's still a bad look on the seller, right? So just be aware that you should be having these disclosures filled out before you go to the market. As a buyer's agent, I like to make sure that my AVID is completed no more than 3 days after we go into contract. If it is a vacant property, I get my tail there and I like to have it submitted with the offer. If it's a property where there are sellers, I give myself 3 to 5 days to have it filled out. But after 5 days, you're really putting yourself and your client at risk. Please try to have AVIDs filled out no later than 5 days after you go into contract. All right, you guys, let me pull my notes back up here. Oh, there is a website I'm going to put in the chat box here that will help you guys with any other questions that you may have on Glide. It is www.help.glide.com. And so there's tons of great resources in there for you. It's the help center. It will take you through basically the same exact thing that we just did as well. And again, my biggest piece of advice to you is you do not ever fill out a T.D.S, S.P.Q, or an E.S.D for your clients. That is no bueno. Please do not ever, ever do that. If they have questions, make yourself available to answer those questions, okay? I've seen it happen before, you guys. I have seen an agent fill out a T.D.S. They forgot something. That agent got taken to court. I want to make sure you keep your tail and your client's tail out of court, okay? So what questions do you guys have, if any at all, about filling out these, getting your sellers to fill these out through Glide? Any questions at all? Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, my transaction coordinator has been doing that for me. So, but I suppose it's good to know exactly what's involved.
Totally.
Yeah. So I suppose my question is, usually my transaction coordinator will start, the documents, first batch, he will send a couple documents over. I think he uses Glide. Yes. So yeah, it's just kind of nice to know what he does.
Right? Yeah, it's good to know how the sausage is made for sure. And TCs, if they're amazing, they will do this for you. They'll just pop it on out for you. Hey, I've created your Glide account. You're good to go. But again, just make sure that you're providing at the listing appointment, because it's going to make you seem like a really educated agent. Provide that TDS and S.P.Q. Hey, once we have the listing agreement signed, here are the statutory documents that you're going to provide to the buyer. I always like to make sure that my sellers know up front what they're going to need to provide to the buyers. Just makes you seem like a much more educated agent. Yeah. Tim, did that answer your question? Are you good to go there?
Yeah. I always like just try to figure out, would it be too much information to share at a listing appointment?
Yeah, some agents don't. Some agents like to keep it quick and simple and go and get your commission and you're out of there, boom, bang, boom, right? I like to take my time, and I always leave a packet of information with the sellers. The folder, got my business card on it. I send them a sample. I give them a physical sample of the RPA as well. That way they know what a purchase agreement looks like and what they'll be going over. I just am someone that is all about educating people up front, so that when questions come up, I can say, oh, go ahead and pull out that sample that I had sent you. Let's take a look at that together. It just is a different way of doing things. Now, if it is a client that is a high D and on the DISC assessment, and I know they just want me to get in and out in 20 minutes, I'm just going to give them the packet. Hey, I've got a ton of great information here for you, including the statutory forms that you're going to be required to fill out. I'm going to leave this here with you. You guys take a look at it and let me know what questions you have. Right? So one of two ways that you could do it. Totally. Great question, Tim.
And may I just kind of quickly ask, so do you tell the seller the sellers in San Francisco, they have to pay, for example, condo documents and 3R report, NHD, those things. So do you, and those cannot be completed by Glide, right?
I believe you're right. The 3R especially, you'll just let them know, hey, my transaction coordinator is going to send you some additional information later on. Yeah. Awesome. Great questions. Aaliyah, I see you've unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question about Glide. When you go into Glide, are the disclosures automatically there, or do we need to select them?
Ooh, good question. So automatically what will show up is the TDS and the S.P.Q. And then I personally like to just add in, if it's something that was built before 1978, I'll add in the lead disclosure, because they're going to have to fill it out anyways. And the earthquake disclosure, again, they're going to have to fill it out anyways. Might as well get it in this disclosure batch.
Yeah. So you basically have them sign all of the disclosures then at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. And it just makes it easier for them. Our whole goal is to make it as stress-free and easy as possible. So I just like to have them get it out of the way at once. And I let them know you are going to have questions. I expect questions. So red flag those questions that you have on Glide, and we'll work through them together. That way they don't feel like, I should probably know if my house is anchored to the foundation. Oh, that's right. Aaliyah told me I would have questions. I'll just ask her about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Get it done up front as possible. Totally. Yeah. Cool, guys. These are great questions. Any other questions or concerns or comments that you guys would like to share about Glide and the seller disclosures?
Hey, Cynthia. So I just wanted to clarify that you said 3 days before it hits the market, we have to do the agent's AVID.
Oh, let me make sure I clarify that. So 3 days after we go into contract.
Got it.
You should have it done. Now, if you're the listing agent, the AVID just needs to be done before you hit the market. Some agents don't do that, but my advice is that you have that done before you hit the market. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Great question. All right, you guys, and there's a video on AVIDs coming out soon that Patrick and I created. There's tons of great resources on Fast Class, so make sure that you guys are checking that out as well. And if there are no more questions, anyone
Wait,
else?
yeah, are all these classes on Marty Network?
They are, yeah. It used to be called Mighty Network. It's now called Fast Class. You can also find them on my YouTube channel. They're all there.
Okay. Okay, is it the same link for Fast Class? I
Yeah,
haven't been on there in like a while.
yeah, all good. Yeah, those are definitely all on Fast Class. And then,
Could you send me the link in Slack?
yeah, for sure. I was
Okay.
looking for it right now. Yep, I'll
Okay.
give you that link on Slack, definitely. And then if you guys want to go see them, because there's a ton of other info that I have on YouTube, like 50 videos, I think.
Can you send your YouTube link too?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Your channel.
Maybe you just copy the link, right?
At the top.
I think so, yeah. Here, tell me if this works. For now, I'm going to pause the recording. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Appreciate you.